there, thanks for being here. My name is Mile Marker, also known as Madeline. This podcast aims to discover what it means to live authentically. I work to uncover tools to help me be most present in my life. Each episode, we will discuss themes like how to listen to your body, understanding ways to be true to yourself, and learning what deep fulfillment looks like. The episodes will also relate to ideas inspired by my 2024 hike across the state of Arizona. Let's do this. Welcome to episode 15 of Musings with Mile Marker. On the 15th day of hiking the Arizona Trail, I hiked 18.8 miles and gained 2,900 feet of elevation gain, still in the Black Hills passage of the Central Passages section. And let's just listen to the audio because it was quite the night and I had a lot of adventures on this day. Let's just take a listen. Today is Sunday, March 24th, which means we've been on the trail for 14 days, I believe. Yes. It's been a wild ride. Today was a wild ride. So last night, we went to bed, tent was set up, everything was pretty much fine. When did it start raining, Nick? So 11 o'clock, it was like drizzling. I'm like, okay, we can handle this. By 3 a.m., it was torrentially hailing. There was like hail piling up on the tent, on the ceiling, and so we were like knocking it off the roof. To keep it from like falling in or dripping in. I slept through the night and the tent maintained its shape, but it was pretty intense. So we woke up, it was clear in the morning. Nick was looking out the window insisting that it was clear skies, but then when I looked out at my door, it was not clear skies. I was very frustrated because the sleeve that my sleeping bag pad was inside was just soaked. So the underside of my sleeping pad and the underside of my sleeping bag were just like sopping wet, and I was really frustrated, and I was agitated starting the hike around 8 a.m. It wasn't really raining at first, but then I would say it was drizzling a little bit, but then from 10 a.m. to 10:30 it was so windy and another torrential hailstorm. Nick didn't really get that wet. Were you cold, Nick?
I got a little wet and cold.
He got a little wet and cold, but not horrible. It was very windy. And then it stopped. And by 10:30, it was really nice. So we walked down to a wash and dried some of our stuff out, which helped. That was like around 11. Our snacks are starting to dwindle. We still have a full day tomorrow, which is Monday, and then a full day Tuesday to get into town. I'm really hoping when we get to the Freeman Trailhead with the bear box that there's some snacks in there. I don't have high hopes, but I would really be happy if there were. We've got a couple Pop-Tarts left, a couple Springs, some electrolytes, but it's not looking good. So what else today? We met two dudes. They're young. They're on spring break. They go to Colby College in Maine. We've been chilling with Morgan. Oh, we met another couple that was hunkering down in their Durston tent. Because in the middle of the night, their Durston tent, one of the guy lines snapped. So they were hanging on for dear life on a ridge. We made it to Beehive Tank. We did 18 miles today. And we get a text from Jackie saying that she had to call Search and Rescue to get taken down from, I think it was like a Revis Trough Trailhead. Because she got way too rained on and had no rain clothes and was freezing, etc., etc. So that's not great. But after the kind of really needing to stay strong in the morning, the afternoon turned out really beautiful. It was never too hot today. The tanks had enough water. We're going to get another round of water in another 8 miles. So thankfully these stretches really haven't been that bad. It hasn't been hot because it's been raining. So we have 20 to do and then 16. Maybe we'll get a little further than 20 tomorrow, maybe. But honestly, doing more than 18 miles each day is just wearing on us. So I'm not sure. what we're going to do, but we do not really want to have a full day of 16 miles to get into Kearney, because then it's going to make our, like, rest day not that restful, so. Also, I made these, the noodles I bought from Sprouts are actually dry noodles, not ramen noodles, but I've been saving the pasta water since you're not supposed to drink it like ramen. I accidentally spilled some of it in the tent, but thankfully it wasn't very much, and we just sopped it up with the buffs, but felt really careless doing that. Alright. We made it through another day. My spirits are high. My body's tired. I'm really glad that my stuff is not wet. So we'll see if we make it through another couple nights.
What you just heard was my audio clip from my 15th day of walking on the Arizona Trail. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this in other previous episodes yet, but even if I did, it's worth mentioning again. So I referenced to someone with a Durston tent and their guy line had snapped. What is Durston? And what is a guy line? I used to think the word was guide line, like the way you would guide someone. But it's actually guy line, as in guy like a man. But a guy line is a piece of cord that attaches from the tent, and you would stake it down into the ground, and it provides tension for the tent to stand up with. For now, I'm going to just describe two types of tents: freestanding and non-freestanding. A freestanding tent means it has tent poles to hold itself up, and a non-freestanding tent means it requires hiking poles or trekking poles as part of a structure in order for it to stand. If a tent is considered freestanding, it doesn't require guy lines to stand up. But if a tent is not freestanding, and that's the kind of tent we are using, a trekking pole or a hiking pole, one or two, are required to maintain the structure of the tent. So the guy lines are critical in order to balance out and keep the tent upright. So if this couple had a snapped guy line, hopefully just one wouldn't completely ruin the integrity of the tent, but it's definitely going to mean their tent was off balance and could have potentially been really frustrating. So, what is Durston? Durston is a hiking brand. My pack, which is called the Kakwa, is a Durston-made pack, and I love my Kakwa pack. Dan Durston is a guy who makes gear and designs gear in Canada, and it's kind of a niche hiking brand. And I love my pack, and hopefully these people, despite their guy line fiasco, love their tent. And it has almost a little bit of a niche or a small devoted following on Facebook. I'm in a Facebook group for Durston camping gear, and people really like it. The customer service is excellent. The prices are fair. The designs are really good. So whenever I see people with other Durston equipment, I smile and appreciate it, because it's nice to see other hikers with gear similar to yours and you can have something in common with them. So that was my little Durston shout out when I noticed that they had some gear. Back in episode 8, I actually spent a few minutes explaining my sleeping bag sleeve and how the sleeve works. So in this instance, I was feeling very frustrated that I used the sleeve this time. So I don't totally recall, but I think some nights I would insert the sleeping pad into the sleeping bag sleeve, and other times I would just sleep right on top of it. And in this case, because the sleeve was around the sleeping pad, basically my sleeping bag fabric was directly touching the ground. And because of the rain, and there must have been some location for a leak in the tent. I don't know where it was. We didn't spend time to investigate. the shape of the tent and how that could have potentially allowed a leak. But when you're in a very intense hailstorm, having some amount of water get in the tent feels inevitable. But because of the direct contact between the bottom layer of my sleeping bag and the floor of the tent, it absorbed and soaked up a lot of the water, which was unfortunate because it basically surrounded the sleeping pad with moisture and then started absorbing into the layer of loft of my sleeping bag, likely. I mean, thankfully, I woke up before this became a problem, but my sleeping bag is a down sleeping bag, and down loses its loft and down loses its thermal properties dramatically when it gets wet. So that's why I was feeling so frustrated, because if I had gotten my sleeping bag seriously wet, it would become no longer useful. And in these conditions, it's getting almost freezing at night. It's very cold. It could be potentially dangerous if my sleeping bag is soaking up water. Thankfully, I was able to still dry the sleeping bag because there weren't consecutive days of rain, or at least a moment of dryness. And being in Arizona, it is pretty arid. I was able to shake out my sleeping bag and dry it sufficiently, but I'm really glad that that didn't become more of an ordeal, because making sure you have enough warmth at night is critical. I mean, potentially very bad and dangerous. So I'm glad that that was able to be remedied. And I'm going to guess I stopped using the sleeve because, frankly, then I'm able to have this 2.5, even 3-inch buffer from the floor of the tent to my body because of the sleeping pad, because my inflatable sleeping pad is really pretty thick. So I'm able to kind of use that as a barrier from anything that could be on the floor of the tent. The reason why I wanted to spend time specifically on why this sleeping bag sleeve was causing me so much strife is that every night before this, I didn't have any issues with my sleeping bag or the sleeping pad or any of the orientations. But because of the rain, I had to adapt. And despite consistency, adaptations are always necessary. So be adaptable, be flexible. Even if something worked for you for a lot of days in the past, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be perfect for the present or even right for the future. This was a great instance on me being flexible and adaptable and learning from my mistakes. And the funny thing is, even at this time, and even as I feel today, I have a lot to learn. I have a lot to learn about hiking still, because I was cooking my dry noodles in the tent and I spilled a little bit of the water. Spilling in your tent is such a faux pas. Like, that is really amateur hour. And frankly, even cooking in your tent is probably not always a good idea. I really like to try to be as comfortable as I can when I'm cooking and when I'm in my tent. Once I've hit tent mode, I want to be cozy. I want to be as comfortable as I can. But having a stove in your tent, or even having a stove in the vestibule and spilling, is amateur hour. So I know I should be more careful, and it's easy to just get complacent sometimes, but everything takes seriousness. Everything takes keeping your wits about you. And I know that I was being a little bit careless, and frankly, it did not deter me from cooking and eating in my tent in the future, that's for sure. But it is important to be conscientious. And something I do want to mention about eating in my tent: this is not bear territory in Arizona. So I did not have to be especially considerate of bear tactics, because there's a whole nother set of how to camp when there are bears present, and what you should do and what gear you need, etc., etc. Thankfully, that was not something I needed to be thinking about, which is why it was okay to be eating in my tent. And again, I'm not an expert on protocol for camping in bear territory, but you definitely should not be eating in your tent and definitely should not be storing your food near your tent if you're in bear country. Also, thankfully, being in Arizona during this season, there weren't really critters. Didn't have to worry about ants or, frankly, mosquitoes or mice. Well, mice could have been an issue at times, but I really tried not to leave too many crumbs. But you can never get too complacent, honestly, with anything. It's important to always clean up after yourself and keep it together. At the end of the audio clip, I mentioned that I needed to go 20 miles and then another 16 miles, but that more than 18 a day started to feel really arduous. And 18 miles a day really did feel kind of like the sweet spot of not feeling overburdened and still feeling like it was a full day. And this 18 miles is something that I was actually thinking about recently today. I'm recording this and it is January 20th, 2026, and I didn't really put a lot of intentional thought into my New Year's resolution, but I just had a random stroke of genius, and my 2026 resolution is to discover what I'm capable of. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because in many of the things that I do, I'm very comfortable and routined in doing things at a medium intensity and medium duration. And I'm using medium intensity and medium duration with respect to no realistic measuring tool, just based on how I feel like I'm pushing myself. So 18 miles a day for, let's just say, 10 to 12 hours felt like a medium distance and a medium intensity. Even when I ride bikes around town now, I can do 30, 35 miles, and I'm probably going 11 miles an hour. Medium distance, medium intensity. When I go on runs, definitely it's a jog. I'm probably in the 11 to 12 minute pace. These days it's probably less than 5 miles, but I'm capable of going medium distance and medium intensity. And the last kind of metric I've been using is bouldering, rock climbing bouldering. I believe that I'm physically capable of a lot more of my climbing potential than I'm realizing or than I'm able to perform. And I don't know that this is true for sure, but I believe that it is. I believe that within myself. And here, an example is I can do 5 consecutive pull-ups, which is actually pretty good. But because of that, I should, quote unquote, I believe that I'm capable of climbing pretty hard boulders, but I'm holding myself back somehow. And I don't know if I'm not coming to my potential. I don't know what the reason is, but that's kind of why I'm ambiguously choosing this idea to discover my potential or discover what I'm capable of, because I think I can go further. I think I can go faster. And specifically, it's higher intensity for shorter distances. I think I can really pack a punch in the physical things that I'm doing, and even perhaps in mental things that I'm doing. But I haven't really put a lot of thought into it. I just want to see what I can do and try to embody that for this year. So that's it. Maybe you will try to discover what you're capable of this year, because every day's a chance to be our best. All right. Thanks, everyone.
That concludes this episode of Musings with Mile Marker. Thanks for listening. The intro and outro music are from a track called Wake Robin, composed and recorded by my late grandfather, Bob Ackery. Cover art for this podcast was designed by Polly Morwood. Production and editing of this podcast were done by me, your host, Mile Marker, aka Madeline Ackery. See you next time.